Welcome to Careers in Accounting. Today we're welcoming Lucy Liu. Lucy is an international tax manager at Deloitte. She's also a WashU alum, so welcome home.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you. So Lucy, maybe to get us started, can you just talk a little bit about what originally got you interested in accounting and what led you to WashU?
I didn't study accounting when I was an undergrad. So I was trying to find a program that lasts longer. Most of the programs here in the United States last only 2 semesters.
Hmm.
But WashU actually offer the flexibility of 3 semesters. You can do it within 2 semesters, or you can graduate in
Hmm.
3 semesters. And the 3 semesters also gives you that summer where you can apply for an internship here. So that program, the length of that program is just perfect for me.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose WashU. And in terms of accounting, I think it's just my personality, but I like working on things that are rule based.
Hmm.
I like working on logical things where I can seek guidance and then, specific rule sets that I can refer to and then make my decision. And accounting is a perfect, depiction of that. So that's why I decided to go to accounting. And specifically, when I was when I was studying here, I was very close to my tax professor, Professor
Yep.
Amy Choi, and so she really, really kind of sparked my interest in tax. And then I had 2 previous internship at Big Four firms related to transfer pricing. So it's kind of like tax related.
Yep.
So that's why I decided, maybe tax is a good profession for me. So
Yep.
that's when I went into, interviews and all that. And the rest is history.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier that I think your view of the industry was similar to mine. A CPA and an accountant you always thought had a job. And so
Hmm.
if you think worst case scenario, you never see an unemployed accountant.
That's
There's
exactly right. Yeah. If you do well, have a good attitude, you'll never lose your job for the rest of your life.
yeah.
So stability.
So you've been at Deloitte for 6 years now.
Hmm.
So you've seen a lot of things. And
Yes.
so and one of the things about public accounting is that there's lots of opportunities that come to you, both within the firm and then external to the firm. Can you maybe talk a little bit about your experience with that and maybe your observations looking at colleagues that maybe have explored various opportunities?
Yeah, sure. So usually in the tax industry, you spend specifically at the Big Four firm, you spend about 2 years being a staff, and then you'll be promoted to a senior staff, and then you stay a senior staff for 2, 3 years, and then you get to be promoted to manager, and then manager usually takes 4 or 5 years, and then you get promoted to senior manager, and then from senior manager on, you can be a partner if you want to stay in the firm, or you can, leave to go to the industry. So I would say, in terms of opportunities, you definitely don't get as many. You don't get approached by recruiters
Hmm.
or recruiting agencies as much when you were in a staff as when you are become a senior staff or manager,
Hmm.
especially manager and senior manager level. And the opportunities you will find that it actually comes more and more. The opportunities comes bigger
Yeah.
as you grow up, as you grow or level up
Hmm.
in your company. So I started to get approached when I was a senior staff. At first, it was just same level transfer. They would offer me a senior staff or senior analyst in a industry, but the pay is slightly better.
Hmm.
And but then I would say once I hit that manager mark, which was last year, it was the opportunities became a lot bigger, and then the money is a lot more. And then I definitely, I probably on average I get 2, 3 LinkedIn messages just
Wow.
directly reaching out every, I would say, every week. So I mean, if you think about that, that's actually very, very good.
Yeah.
So again, right, job
Yeah.
security.
And I guess that's probably the result of being at a firm of that nature and that
Hmm.
prestige and getting that branding, if you will, on your resume,
Yeah,
right? You're
exactly.
credentialed into the marketplace. And that's what companies are looking for is that
Hmm.
kind of level of experience. And I think that's one of the things that younger people need to think about is your training doesn't stop when you graduate, right? It now
Right.
gets turned over to a firm such as Deloitte, and then they finish your training, if you
Mhm.
will, as you become a more well-rounded professional, and that's
Right.
very appealing in the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. And then especially in Deloitte, I'm sure it's at PwC too. When you get to a certain year, you're actually required to teach certain courses to lower level training programs. So we call it the trainer programs.
Hmm.
So I'm going to participate in a trainer program next year, and then that's a great opportunity. And then you'll find out that even with the simplest code section, there's still so much that you don't know
Yeah.
once you get into teaching, because you have to understand it first and then to be able to
Yeah.
teach it to others.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have
so
to learn a mile to teach an inch is the way I like
exactly.
to think about it.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things the profession suffers from is kind of the stereotype that it's very much same as last year, and then an
Hmm.
accountant sits in the basement and ticks and ties numbers if they're on the financial accounting side, or they're just filling out tax returns and not talking to anybody, not interacting with anybody, and you just keep doing that year over year. And I found that my clients were very interactive and very doing lots of different things,
Hmm.
and I think that's your experience as well. But can you talk to that image factor of it just being very stereotypical and
Yeah.
same as last year type?
Yeah, I would say the same as last year, rolling over work papers from last year to this year. A small portion of that is
Hmm.
true because, fundamentally, some of the businesses they stay relatively
Yep.
stable year over year.
Yep.
So there is that component where you have to roll over from last year to this year. But at the same time, some of my clients or most of my clients are actually doing things very differently, year over year. So they take on new business activities, and they engage in new intercompany transactions, or they acquire or they sell. So when certain things like this happen, it really affect our work because we have to report it. We also have to analyze it. So it's not really just rolling over from last year to this year, because every year is changing, as something is different. And then and on top of that, right, the tax laws are always
Hmm.
changing. There's always new proposed regs coming out, notices from the IRS coming out that tell you that certain laws have changed. So now you have to find a new tax position, relying on the new proposed regs.
Hmm.
Um, those two combined, right, really made our work more interesting
Yep.
and more, I guess, like you said, interactive, because you always, the fact you have to communicate with the clients to know the facts, and you have to do your own homework to kind of
Hmm.
see which code sections actually apply, and then come up with your own opinion. So,
Yeah. And so you being in the international tax space, advising U.S. businesses doing work abroad and companies abroad doing work in the United States, the laws outside the United States are always changing as well. So
exactly.
it's like nothing but change all the time going
Exactly.
on. So
Yeah.
what I'd like to get your thoughts on is I see that as a fantastic opportunity for a young person because you look at business, they're constantly going to expand. They want to access other markets, and non-US companies want to obviously access the US market.
Hmm.
And the complexities there, business is going to do it anyway. They need people such as yourself to help them navigate all of this and
Hmm.
this complexity. So if I look at the industry and I see a potential for a young person to come into it, be motivated, be very diligent in their career. But to me, the sky's the limit on
Hmm.
that. But I'd like to get your thoughts on that. What do you feel about kind of the prospects of a young accountant coming into the industry?
I mean, we always appreciate people with a good attitude. And when you started out, it's not very. People always think that you have to have certain level of technical knowledge to be able to get into
Hmm.
the accounting industry specifically, which is not true. We actually don't expect anything, anything actually going into the job. But we offer lots of trainings to you. That's the value where I would say specifically with public accounting is that we offer lots of training. You'll never be short on the learning side. Within the firm is always a lot of resources that you can seek help to and then going into the profession, usually, your base pay probably, if we talk about money, right?
Hmm.
Like, your base pay is probably a little, less desirable than some of the very high paying jobs. I don't know, software engineer or finance,
Yeah.
but also you see that double digit growth every year as long as your performance is relatively. I don't even have You don't even have to be like extremely well, right?
Hmm.
Like you just have a good performance, have good attitude, and you will see that double digit growth every year, specifically in tax. Whenever there is a year of legislation change, they're going to cherish their employees a lot more
Yeah.
because there's a lot more work. So, it'll be reflected in salary, in raise and bonuses. So, speaking personally, right, my salary, I would say wasn't very, ideal when I first started. But since then, I'm at year 6. It has increased by 150%, which I think is a very, very good,
Hmm.
growth
Yeah.
rate, right? So I would say though, going into it, so you really have to focus on, not just the immediate present, but also, 3 to 4 years, you'll see that reward. You get your reward, whether it's like tangible financially, but also intangible. When you connect all the dots, you kind of know, the cross references. You
Hmm.
you see a more holistic picture. And then you'll feel very fulfilled and motivated to work every day.
Yeah. And so I like the way you phrased that, that I almost view it as kind of a super grad school. When
Yeah.
you start at one of these and you're at the 1 or 2 year level, you're still learning, you're learning on the job, you're learning through training that the firms are providing you. Um, and then you get to a certain level, your level, where you become a very attractive colleague. And so one of the things is the firm's going to be very motivated to keep you, but
Mhm.
the industry, clients, and what have you are going to be very interested in talking to you as well because you've had that experience. You've
Yeah.
invested in yourself, working hard,
Yeah.
getting paid very well year over year, and now you're ready for bigger and better things,
Yeah.
both within the firm and outside the firm.
Right.
Um, can you talk a little bit about work-life flexibility? I
Mhm.
know that's an issue the accounting industry has, is that it's viewed as people have their head down, they're working really hard, extraordinary number of hours. But when I tell you, how do you manage your work life and balance the two? How does that look for you?
It's true that we do have our busy season. And, during our busy season, we have to work, more than 40 hours a week. But I would say the busiest I have been, I've never worked for more than 65 hours.
Hmm.
And it's just not sustainable if you
Hmm.
keep working for that long and then it's not sustainable. So the firm is actually trying to avoid, working you for multiple amount of weeks and for
Because they
that
want they
long.
want you happy and they want you to
Exactly,
stay.
exactly. And then they offer, all sorts of like well-being programs. They actually give you money to, literally, I mean, my company gives you $1,000 so you can buy, fitness related stuff and video games,
Hmm.
just to focus on the well-being side of
Yep.
things, right? And coming out of busy season, and then you will fall into a steady work stream of, 35 to 40 hours, and that's when you can really enjoy your life, take advantage. We have lots of PTOs, paid time off.
Hmm.
So, you know, I think, the public accounting firms, they actually offer slightly more PTOs than industry. So that's when people really start to take advantage of their downtime. They take, their paid time off, they go travel or spend time with the family. For me, because my family isn't back in China, so I always go
Hmm.
home. I try to go home once in every year. And in terms of flexibility, like you just mentioned, you and your team who you're working with, if you establish a term with them, for example, my term with them is that I will not take smaller holidays here and there, but I kind of aggregate all of my
Okay.
days off into one big chunk of
Yep.
of the PTO, and then I try to take it all at once.
Yep.
And they're okay with that. So,
Hmm.
the flexibility, and then everybody has their own terms. As long as it fits within your
Hmm.
schedule, it fits the team's availability, then there's no issue that you can take, pay time off, however you wanted to
Yeah.
do it. So, definitely not working hard, 10 hours, 12 hours every single day. I would say out of 12 months out of a year, probably I work like that, probably 3, 4 months,
Hmm.
10 hours, 12 hours. But for the rest of the 8, 9 months, I just enjoy my life,
Yeah.
really.
And don't you, my experience is pre-pandemic, if someone told you they were going to work from home, one of your staff members was telling you they were going to work from home, it kind of had a stigma associated
Mm-hmm.
with it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, really, do you need to
Yeah.
work from home? We come in the office. But post-pandemic, all that seems to have gone away.
Yeah.
Everybody's treated as an adult.
Yeah.
Everyone, as long as you know the team knows the deadlines when something's due, it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like I don't really bother me how you get to the finish line. If you want
Yeah.
to work in the mornings
Mm-hmm.
or you work better in the evenings after
Right.
things are quieting down, then do that. But we all kind of, we're a team and,
Right.
we're going to the same goal at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
And
How
then
we get there is our choice.
right, within the team, you will have people who have children,
Yeah.
little children. So you probably can't work after 5, but then, or after 4. So
Hmm.
that's totally fine, right? And I have friends who work in the traditional industry, like very traditional manufacturing companies, and um, they have to ask for their boss's permission
Yeah.
to go to a dental appointment, even as small things like small things as that, they have to obtain some sort of approval.
And the thought that somebody's watching you when you come in and go,
Yeah,
that doesn't happen in
no,
Big
it
Four.
it never happens. If there was one single benefit, which I'm still doubtful, that the pandemic brought to our life,
Yeah.
is that it has taught people to work efficiently
Yeah.
and productively at home
Yeah.
remotely. And then that kind of also formed a trust
Yeah.
between your boss and the employees, right? That, yeah, we can actually be at home and then work,
Yeah. There's
productively.
lots of different ways to do the job, but
Yeah.
trust, that's a perfect word
Yeah.
to phrase it.
Yeah.
So, last topic for you. Besides students finishing their technical skill sets on whatever area, financial accounting or tax, that they may be interested in, what are your other thoughts? What should they focus on in their remaining time in school to kind of be best positioned to start their careers?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is probably communication skills. Really spend the time to hone your communication skills. That includes, ways of practicing it is to, raise your hand and ask questions in the classroom, right? Um, Also work, take the lead a school or group project. You really have to learn how to articulate yourself in a concise but an explicit way.
Hmm.
And you also, because you're in the real work situation, you're always communicating with your teammates, and you're also communicating with the clients. So that the communication skills is definitely absolutely my number one, priority, that you just have to practice, continue to practice, right? The practice doesn't stop there. And the second point I would say is to learn to work well with people with different
Hmm.
personalities. Within a very big firm, you will have some people who are very driven and very aggressive, but then you have people who are very laid back. So you have to learn how to work with these different kind of
Yeah.
people. And then one way that I suggest you practice this is that in a group project where you can find your own group mates, try to work with somebody that you haven't worked with
Yeah.
before. Don't only work with your friends, because you get along with them, and we all know that. But really, your colleagues were not your friends at first, right?
Yeah.
So you just really have to um, train yourself to be flexible, be vigilant, to adapt yourself or your work style
Hmm.
to fit, your team's dynamics.
Yeah. So, he says very interesting things there. So I like the idea of working with different people and practicing that, because I've always viewed it as when you get into practice, you don't get to pick your clients.
No, no,
You're going to walk in a room, somebody might be very technical
yeah,
in your area. So,
hmm,
the night before, I got to be ready. I got to
yeah,
be ready to have that conversation.
right,
Or you might walk into a partner's office that's very technical person and you got to be the same way. Or vice versa. Somebody might not be very technical. That to me is almost a harder job, because then you got to make sure they appreciate the importance of what you're telling them.
Yeah.
And this is important. I know you don't want to read the rules, but this
Right.
is very important.
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, I will tell you an interesting story. Is that for me, I'm really, really, I wanted to follow the agenda. I wanted to talk about what I want to talk about
Yeah.
with you. But then I have a couple of clients, this one specifically in Denver. He is, we call him like this personality, a pioneer. He's very creative, filled with ideas,
Okay.
but then he's never really following the agenda, and he's always, what about this, what about that, what if this, what if that, so you just have to kind of, and then after a couple of meetings you kind of know
Yeah.
that's his pattern, and then maybe scratch the agenda. You have to
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, so I am prepared to answer your what ifs and what about
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's another example
Yeah.
of adaptation.
The other point you made was about students being more proactive during their time here. And I know it's sometimes easy if you have a morning class, you're tired, you don't want to raise your hand, or you don't want
Hmm.
to ask a question or something like that. But I think if you just focus on breaking out of that mentality, because
Yeah.
when you get into practice, you are going to be expected to participate.
Yeah.
When you're in a conference room and you're working on something, you don't want to just sit there quiet,
Yep.
right? You need to be interactive. And
Yep.
so that's what we're trying to do. And it's a safe place to practice it in school, because
Exactly.
nothing's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Don't be afraid. I mean,
Exactly.
that's what we tell, our new hires all the time, because they're in a room with lots of technical people, and they think, oh, I don't know anything, so I'm afraid to speak up. And then I'm sure that, in a classroom, sometimes students feel the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, other people are watching me, what if I said something wrong? Is the professor going to, laugh at me, or those students were going to laugh at me? But again, right, school is such a safe, you can't find a safer place to
Hmm.
practice than school, and
Yeah.
then in your classroom.
Exactly.
And I would say going into work, as long as it's an internal meeting, it's also a very
Yeah.
safe place to practice, right? Nobody's going to give you a hard time, especially new hires, when you
Yeah.
say something wrong,
And,
right?
and practice gets you more comfortable doing that when it becomes
Exactly.
an important meeting and you're the one
Exactly.
talking to someone who's
I mean, can
making a
you?
decision.
I couldn't even imagine that I'm sitting here talking with you, in this room, and then recording and then all that. When I was a student,
Yeah.
I was so shy, and I was so introverted. I was afraid. I was intimidated by certain professors,
Yeah.
right? But then, looking back, I wish I had
Yeah.
been more brave, and
It gets easier every time you do it, just
exactly.
like most things.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucy, really appreciate your time and your thoughts. It's been
Thanks for
very,
having
very
me.
helpful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is very fun.